Thanks for joining us here as we take a look at what's going on with Tropical Storm Beryl. It is a high-end tropical storm as it tracks on off in the direction of the Gulf of Mexico. It's about to emerge into the Gulf of Mexico, and I have a split screen up here so you can see over here on this side right there what's going on with this system. It's starting, the cloud tops are warming a little bit, which is pretty common when we look at a tropical system. I'll bring it up full so you can see it a little better. So what's happening here is that the cloud tops are starting to warm because the center's been over land. It came ashore early this morning in the early morning hours, and it's still spinning over the Yucatan, but it's spending less time over the Yucatan compared to what we were expecting. It's taken more of a northwesterly jog, and so this limited amount of time on the Yucatan means that it's less time for the circulation to get disrupted, and it will begin to get reorganized, we think, when it gets over the Gulf of Mexico. The environment in the Gulf is actually more conducive for strengthening than it was in the Northwest Caribbean Sea, where it kind of gradually degraded the system from its track to Jamaica towards the Yucatan. And let's take a look at what's going on with Beryl this afternoon. Here is a little different satellite image. I'm going to put the background in all black so you can see how compact this thing is. It's not super long. The circulation is getting more stretched out north to south, and likely still influenced a little by some shear as well. And certainly the land interaction is having a big impact on this system. The particulars on it right now, it is a 70-mile-per-hour tropical storm. The pressure is 986, so this pressure's up quite a bit from that 964 we had at the 10 o'clock advisory last night. It is moving west-northwest at 15. It's a little to the east-southeast of Progreso, Mexico, and it won't be long, and this thing will be back out over the Gulf. And we continue to go through the afternoon and into the evening. We're going to be monitoring the circulation. It should be entering the Gulf of Mexico by this evening, and that's where it will find some fairly warm water. Now, the water is not as warm off the tip of the Yucatan as it is in the west central Gulf, which is where it's going. Also, it takes about 18 to 24 hours for the core of the storm typically to restructure after passage over land. So the inner dynamics of the storm may be a little disrupted here. So it's going to take some time. Now, the forward speed is still going to be fairly progressive in the short term. And so we're looking at the track through the day tomorrow. It's going to work well out into the western Gulf of Mexico by tomorrow afternoon. But the steering currents are about to get a lot weaker, which means it could slow down quite a bit as we head into Sunday, and the threat to the Texas coast is definitely more significant than what we've been tracking. And the path has shifted. We mentioned that, you know, the steering flow with this was very certain all the way across the Caribbean. But once this thing got in the Gulf, kind of not all bets are off, but we expected it to, there was more variability in the forecast and the cone got a lot wider. Now that cone is centering up, and it looks more and more likely that whether it makes landfall just inside of Mexico or at Brownsville, the most intense impacts are going to be on the Texas coast. And it's possible that the impacts will be along the entire Texas Gulf Coast, possibly even into southwestern Louisiana, with some of the outer impacts of this system as the low pressure area moves inland and then drags on up into East Texas. This will be a rainmaker. Now, for us, we probably won't see many impacts here. If it curves enough to the east, we may see a little enhancement to our shower and thunderstorm situation, but we're not expecting anything other than an increase at rip currents at our area beaches possible this weekend. And here is that rip current forecast. High risk for tomorrow and Sunday, a medium risk on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Surf heights are not going to be incredible, but the rip current danger is there. The waves offshore are running about 2 to 4 feet, but there is a really tight wave period. So the waves are really close together. It's choppy, it's rough, and that's a sign that we've got a system that's going to produce the potential for rip currents. So definitely want to be careful with that if you have any kind of beach plans or know anybody who does over the 4th of July holiday weekend. Now, in June, we don't normally see systems form in the middle of the Atlantic. Normally they're homegrown systems. They develop in the Northwest Caribbean Sea or in the Gulf or in the Eastern Atlantic and not out further out into the Atlantic. Now we get into July and we can see systems develop in the far western Atlantic Ocean right near the Caribbean, but this was a mid-Atlantic system. It's the strongest hurricane on record for the months of June and July, and it's not a good sign for the rest of the tropical season. As we look at development chances out there, really not seeing much going on. There was one little wave behind that feature, but not much else out there now. And this is the cause of our concern. This is part one of the cause of our concern, is that water temperatures are already close to what they would be in August or September. So we're way ahead of schedule. Water temperatures are way above normal, and they're not just above normal here, but also in the Caribbean Sea and in the Atlantic. And anything over 82 degrees is fuel for a hurricane, big time. And then you start talking about water temperatures in the mid 80s, and you've got definite problems. The other thing that's going on, last year we had really warm water as well. Of course, it's not quite as warm as this year, but it was real toasty. And looking at it, we've got a La Nina pattern this year. Last year it was an El Nino. Big difference in the potential for storms. If we have a La Nina pattern, it normally means low wind shear. So there's nothing to disrupt these things. We'll see more storms just based on the wind flow pattern. So it's hitting us from both sides. We've got favorable environment. We also have the warm water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico, and that's one of the reasons why we expect more storms this year. So active systems, we had Alberto. Beryl's still a thing. It is a tropical storm. It made it all the way up to Category 4 strength. Chris was a tropical storm, which dissipated quickly, and so we're already on the fourth name as our next possible system, but we're really not seeing anything out there that would be a possible trouble. Be careful if you're out and about across our part of the Gulf Coast over the next really 5 to 7 days. Dew points are in the upper 70s, and so the heat index is going to be really high. We're thinking generally around 110 each day. So make sure you drink a lot of water and watch out for heat stroke and heat exhaustion. And you got to just take it easy in the afternoon. Say, instead of going out there in the hottest part of the day, maybe I'll wait. Or if you have to work outside, try and start your day a little earlier, knock off a little sooner, take some breaks, find some shade, drink a lot of water. Stay hydrated. That is the key. Thanks for joining us here on Next Weather. I'm Chief Meteorologist Jason Smith. I kind of want to give you a deeper look at what's happening with the tropical situation in Beryl, and we do expect that system to potentially intensify as it heads towards Texas. It may even become a stronger system. In fact, I want to back it up here, and I'm going to put it on the actual forecast for Texas. And so instead of this thing briefly being a Cat 1 hurricane at landfall, there's the possibility it could be stronger. The National Hurricane Center track shows it as a high-end Category 1. And bringing it up full here, winds at landfall at 85. But I wouldn't be surprised if Beryl is stronger than that when it hits Texas, especially if it tracks a little to the east of the current forecast path and spends more time over water. We'll be watching this on Fox 10 News. Thanks for joining us.